Lexus first introduced the very first GX in the US in 2002 with the GX470. And over the years, of course, there has been little minor tweaks here and there, cosmetic changes, powertrain change from the 470 to 460, but overall, it's been the same SUV for 22 years until now. Now we have this, the 2024 Lexus GX550. This is much bigger, it looks different, new powertrain, and yet it's still a body-on-frame SUV that can tow over 9,000 pounds. So is this still rugged? Yes. Is it still capable? Yes. But how good is it? Today, we'll find out. All right, I'm behind the wheel of the brand new GX550. To be honest, I've been looking forward to this car. I reviewed so many of the old GX460s, 470, and it was basically the same car. Yes, the cosmetic stuff, you know, outside with the spindle grille, yes, that changed it. And then yes, they added the tri-beam headlights, and then they finally added the new infotainment system. But overall, it was the same car that hasn't changed for 22 years. That has changed with this brand new GX550. Now, what's amazing about this car is the fact that this is still a body-on-frame SUV. In fact, they share the same frame as the new Sequoia and Tundra. Think about that. Okay, so this is a true body-on-frame SUV, which is why this can tow 9,000 pounds. So if you compare this to other competitors, you know, the mid-size SUVs within a luxury class, I mean, this tows way more, thousands and thousands of pounds more than the competition. And that's terrific for those of you guys that do have a big boat, or you want to tow jet skis, or whatever you may want to tow. This will be able to do it easily. Now let's look at some of the differences. The biggest one has to be the outside look, the exterior look, right? And I'm not gonna go too much into detail because Steve and Josh will cover that in depth, but I will say that the new change is definitely welcomed. It's just different, right? Even though you may be stuck with that spindle grille and you like that, that's no longer the case, but I love the new look because it's different. It's also a lot wider and more masculine and boxier, and you know, you put it all together, I think this is a good looking GX. And it does have a better stance too, because it is significantly larger. It's 4 inches wider, so it's, yeah, it has a much better presence. It's taller, it's longer, 5 inches longer. Wheelbase grows by over 3 inches, which means there's more size on the inside. Well, overall, these are all good things. It makes the GX more practical for families. And also because this is a body-on-frame SUV, the ground clearance is quite high. It's almost 9 inches of ground clearance, which is surprising, again, for SUV in this class. And what's also surprising is even with close to 9 inches of ground clearance, it's still very easy to get in and out of. Because this GX has grown in size, it is a lot more comfortable on the inside. I mean, just look at how much headroom I have. Endless headroom, shoulder room, hip room, plenty. More room in the back, second row especially, and in the third row too. Overall, it's just a lot more comfortable on the inside, and the visibility is great too. Because everything is very straight up, the windshield is very straight up, not a whole lot of slants. The windows, side windows, back windows, very big, great visibility, and I love these big mirrors. Most modern cars have small little mirrors, but these are big, almost like towing mirrors. Love it, love it. So inside, very comfortable, and the seats are good. I do feel like the seats are holding me in without being too harsh, too hard. It's a good compromise. And the suspension of this GX is amazing. It's really soaking up everything. Now, something else that's changed is the tailgate. Now, normally, that's not something one talks about. But because the old GX had the tailgate swing sideways, that meant that there was no power tailgate feature, right? And you had to swing it. And plus, when it rains, it's not convenient because you don't have a kind of like a cover, right? That's been changed. Lexus is like, no more. Let's give it a traditional power tailgate So that is what you get with this new GX550, which I think a lot of people will be very pleased with. Now, something else that's changed with this new GX is the brand new powertrain. The old tried and true 4.6 liter V8, which has been out for over a decade, has been replaced. So it's unknown if this new one is as reliable. But I will say this, just by driving around town, I know for a fact that this powertrain is a lot more powerful, more responsive, it's more fuel efficient, and overall, I'm really enjoying it. I'm about to test out 0 to 60, but right now, even with Steve in the car, so we're two big heavy guys in this very heavy SUV, anytime I put my foot down, like, you actually get pushed back in the seat because there's so much torque with this new twin turbo engine. It's actually quite amazing if you think about it. So let me test out 0 to 60 here. All right, we're at a standstill. Yeah, that's actually quite impressive. That was actually over. That was about 70 miles per hour. And the rear, like, goes down and you just take off. And the transmission handled that beautifully. You know, I would say everything is better about this engine except the sound, because it's not a V8, it's a twin turbo V6. But again, I don't know about reliability. Only time will tell, but this is a lot more powerful, 349 horsepower, and I think 470 pound-feet of torque. That's a lot of torque.
So for 2024, the exterior of the GX550 is completely redesigned, and I like it a lot. The new 550 has a completely different look than the 460 and especially the 470, which I own. The hood has kind of a nice scoop to it, so you have more visibility looking out the windshield. Also, it has some nice sharp body lines that run all throughout the car, leading all the way to the back, as well as a black line that kind of separates the roof from the side exterior. The headlights, you have tri-beam LED headlamps, which are very nice. The fog lights also at the bottom, they kind of have a side view or a side fog light as well to help really clear out the fog, I guess. With the new 550, it does retain the soccer mom running boards that everybody that gets it for overlanding, they immediately cut those off and take it off. Put on some rock sliders, something a little bit more manly, tough looking. I really am not a fan of the running boards whatsoever. I think they really turn it into kind of a van style more than an SUV style, but they're there nonetheless. Of course, like George mentioned, you do have the power rear door. However, one thing that the rear door does have is the opening glass pane window. So with the push of a button, the pane opens up and flips upwards, and you just kind of firmly push it back into place and go on your way. You do have roof rails on the top for storage or for a rooftop tent, so you know that's great. There's a lot of tents made specifically for the GX lineup. Also, you do retain a moonroof or a sunroof, which I love in the Lexus or in the GXs. It's very comfortable to have. Feels like it really opens up the space, gets some natural light in. So that's nice to see. Moving on to the interior, you do have the nice black leather, the synthetic leather going all the way throughout. They call it like new Lux or something like that. A lot of different manufacturers are just naming synthetic leather now. But it does feel nice. It's nice and soft. However, it does feel slightly fragile. Like I know if I brought my dog in here, I'd probably rip it up if I'm taking him to the groomers. The infotainment center is completely new as well for this 550. You have a 14-inch touchscreen as well as a 12.3-inch info display. So for your speedometer and all that, it's also got PSI on here. Of course, your fuel tank, battery level, oil temperature. Of course, you do also have the heads-up display now as well. So that will tell you your speed limit, what your current miles per hour is, and it'll yell at you to put your hands back on the wheel too. So if you're into that sort of thing, which I'm not, it'll beep at you and throw lights all over and tell you you're not paying attention. With the steering wheel, of course, you do have all of your typical buttons, like for your assisted driving, your cruise control, media, your high Lexus, which, you know, is kind of like your Siri. This also does have that. The seat has 3 memory seat functions. On the higher trims also, the seat also has massage. This premium one does not have massage, so unfortunately I can't experience a wonderful massage today. Your driver door panel, you do have your window controls or your mirror controls for your side view mirrors, as well as of course your window controls, lock and unlock the windows. Overall, it's pretty simplistic. There's not a whole lot going on. Everything is in a common spot, no bizarre changes. You do get paddle shifters as well. However, this does already have crawl mode, so if you are using it for overlanding, it does have crawl mode. You've also got, of course, your 4 high and 4 low in the center with your center lock diff. It is all-time 4-wheel drive like every other GX, so that's very typical. Almost every Lexus actually is all-time 4-wheel drive. Like the 550 that we reviewed a couple weeks ago, it has that same problem with the touchscreen on the infotainment screen, where you lose about 1/5 of your screen to climate controls full time. You can never take it away. If anything, you can just make them take up more space. However, with that, you do have a passenger heated and ventilated seat, and along the roofs in the 3rd row even, there is air vents, which is nice. Also in the front, in the center here, you do have a wireless phone charger. And then you do have a 12-volt like cigarette lighter style one, 2 USB-C ports, one for data, one strictly for charging. It is just a rear view mirror. You have your 3 home link buttons, no digital rear view mirror, which I actually think is nice. I'm not a fan of it, but for overlanding, it can be helpful at times. Also, the dome lights are motion censored, so if you kind of wave your hand in front of them instead of pressing a button, they just turn on. I actually think that's a cool feature. I like that a lot. Of course, you've got your hazard button directly below the touchscreen and an extremely small glove compartment. Might be one of the smallest glove compartments I've ever seen. So that's kind of a bummer. Also, they got rid of the clamshell opening on your center console, which is great. It's really deep, tons of storage. However, there's no power in there. So if you're looking for power there, you gotta look elsewhere. The car is equipped with 6 total USB ports, so you won't have a hard time finding that power though. On the back of your center console, you do have another climate control center so that you rear passengers can control theirs on their own instead of you doing it. Also, you do have the 2 USB ports right there as well. The seats are still the nice black synthetic leather that we have in the front, not heated or ventilated, of course, but they do recline. They don't fold all the way flat either. So you do kind of lose that front space where they stick up, but they fold up and down very simply. And yeah, it's one-handed operation. Steve is about 6'1". He has about 5 to 6 inches of headroom in the middle row and plenty of knee space as long as the passenger or driver is not reclining back. Now, if you shove Steve into the back row, he becomes very cramped. He told me he didn't like it. But we put him back there anyways, just to show to you how cramped it really is. It's really made for kids. It's not made for Steve. You've got 2 more USB ports on the left and right, and that's about it. They're basically kind of like jump seats that fold into the floor, somewhat one-handed operation. It's kind of interesting how the bottom seat like pulls out. I don't know, it's interesting, I guess. Now, as far as safety goes, this Lexus is completely loaded with it. It features the Lexus Safety System 3.0, which does have the pre-collision system. So if you're, coming too fast up on something, it will automatically brake. It's got road sign assistance, so both your driver screen as well as your heads-up display, like I mentioned, do display the speed limit as well as tell you when you're going over it. It also has lane tracing, so it will stay within the lane if you turn that on. It's also got dynamic radar cruise control, so basically adaptive cruise control. If you're coming up on another car that's braking, it'll brake, and as they get further away, it'll get back up to the speed that you set it at. When you've got your turn signals on, it'll let you know if there's something in your blind spot. And then it's also got intelligent high beams. And the last thing it does have is blind spot monitoring with cross traffic alert. So what that means is basically when you're trying to pull out into a road and you can't see because of the trees or a building, it'll try to tell you if something's coming from the other way.
For the fuel economy, 15 miles per gallon for the city, 21 for the highway, and combined with 17 miles per gallon, which is definitely better than the old GX, right, Josh?
Yeah, it's definitely better than the older ones. The V8 gets terrible gas mileage.
Yeah, and in terms of horsepower and gas mileage, ratio is definitely a lot more, right?
Oh yeah, it's way more. The horsepower on the 470 is something like 268, or I believe, right? So get almost half 50% more horsepower, and still way worse fuel economy.
So one thing I really like what Lexus did to this new GX is they get rid of the air suspension.
You like that?
I don't like air suspension. It's so expensive to replace the airbag for the air suspension. If you take it to the dealer, I think they probably charge you like 10 grand for that.
Oh yeah, it's not that hard to do though. So I mean, if somebody does need to do it, I suggest you kind of look into it. If you've got an older 460 or 470, it's really not that difficult. I actually removed mine myself, and I did switch over to a coil. So I'm with you there. But I mostly did that because I didn't want to replace the compressor. You know, mine's an 06, and I would have had to replace the compressor and everything. So instead, I just ripped it out and I went to springs.
Wow, that's a smart choice, you know. Yeah, but for this car, I definitely I clearly see it like what Lexus try to cater to. You know, I think they cater to more to the soccer dad than soccer mom. Especially they get rid of the air suspension because they know the consumer will the first thing they're gonna put a lift kit on.
That is true. However, you will be limited in the amount of lift that you can get on this because it is equipped with EKDSS. So, you know, that allows your front links and everything to get undone. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, automatically with this electronic one.
Oh, that'd be even better.
Yeah, even
Just
better.
press the button, right?
Yeah.
For the interior space, and I would say maybe my Land Cruiser a little bit wider, but in terms of the space is about the same. What about compared to your GX? What about the cargo space?
There is actually a little bit more cargo space, and you know, actually the GX I have, the seats fold down from the sides, so I removed those completely, and because they actually really limited the storage space you had. You got to figure if you have both those seats in there, they're about like 6 to 7 inches wide, so that's like 14 inches of space you're losing. But taking those out, I kind of regained it. You still have the wheel well, but with this being wider and longer than the old GXs, you do have more space. I could probably fit like a 75-inch TV in my car. You can probably fit, you know, maybe 77, maybe an 80. So it's definitely a little bit bigger in here.
Tell us more about your GX. Like, how reliable is it? What is a major repair that you have done for your ownership?
Well, every 470 owner will tell you the one thing that they've had to do a million times. Well, not a million times. You know, it depends on how many miles you got on your car and how often you're driving it. But with the 470s especially, and 460s, I believe up to like 2012 or 2013, you have a timing belt. Now, you know, every about 80, 90,000 miles, you've got to replace that. Otherwise, you risk throwing your engine entirely. That timing belt snaps and it's over. So that's a major one. You got valley leaks. Luckily, knock on leather, that hasn't happened to me. So there's that. Also, like we mentioned, the air suspension, that either the bags go out, the compressor goes out, or whatever, and you've got to address that. The cabin air filter on the GX line, for some reason, seems to get dirty quite fast, and the filters really aren't all that cheap either, you know. But it is a premium vehicle, and the drive is fantastic. About 18 years later for mine, it drives like a dream. Super quiet, no issues with gear hunting. I love it.
One more thing, what about the tire for your OGX? How often do you replace the tire? Is it expensive? Is it?
Well, you know, if you shop at Costco, it's not too expensive. But the tire wear actually is pretty even, and it's not too bad on the GX. You know, if I was out ripping the trails more often, like I'd like to be, unfortunately, being in the Midwest, it's kind of a chore to get out there and do. But no, the tires, I mean, I think I get like three or 4 years. I mean, 4 is pushing it, obviously, but 3 years easy out of my tires. Now, for pricing, the 2024 GX line is available in 6 different trim options. The GX550 Premium, like we're driving today, starts at $64,250. The Premium Plus starts at $69,250. The 550 Luxury at $77,250. The Luxury Plus at $81,250. The 550 Overtrail at $69,250. and the Overtrail Plus at $77,250.
So to conclude, I think this GX550 is a huge, monumental leap over the last GX460, right? This 550 just does everything better, in my opinion. It looks better, it's more practical because it's bigger, it's more powerful, and it has all the latest gadgets and gizmos, and you know, it's just better overall. The only question I have is, because I haven't driven the new 4Runner yet, that's the only question I have is this better than the 4Runner? Is the price better than the 4Runner? Does it make it more worth it? I guess that's what it comes down to, because the 4Runner obviously is using the same chassis, but it does have a different powertrain, and of course it has its own capabilities with the TRD Pro, which this doesn't have, and there's some things that are different about it. So I don't know, and I don't know the starting price for the 4Runner versus this. I mean, Steve and Josh already covered the price. I mean, this starts from the base starts from the 60s, goes all the way up to 80s. I'm assuming the 4Runner is going to start around the 40s and top out in the 60s. So I don't know. So I would love to test the 4Runner later on, but I would say this: if you're considering whether to get a GX550 over the 460, there's no consideration. This is a much better SUV. Go for it. But when you're comparing this, let's say, to the competition, which it's hard to categorize, because if you look at the competition, it'll be like the X5 or the GLE or the Q5 or Q7. They don't really compare to this. This is kind of, the GX is kind of like in a class of its own, so it's really hard to compare. So I guess you just have to drive them and see which ones you like better. Smash it a like, subscribe to the channel. We will see you later in our next car review, so make sure you don't miss it. Bye-bye.